Hi guys, welcome to day 12 of Vlogmas. I know by the title of this video, you guys are probably like, girl, what are you talking about and what are you about to say? So a few months ago on TikTok, I saw a girl talking about maladaptive daydreaming. So maladaptive daydreaming is a psychological condition where somebody is daydreaming so much to the point where it disrupts their ability to function in daily life. Like daydreaming in general is normal, like before you go to sleep, daydreaming a little bit, but whenever it starts to consume a significant amount of time in your life and it's disrupting work, school, etc., it's a problem. So this got me thinking about how we daydream in a talking stage with somebody and how that can low-key be mentally damaging. Let me cook. Okay, I have 4 main reasons on why I think that daydreaming during the talking stage can be mentally damaging. I'm going to tell you guys the 4 reasons, and then we're going to dive deeper into these 4 reasons. Reason number 1, we create unrealistic expectations for somebody that we barely know. 2, we begin to fall in love with the idea of that person that we created in our head rather than who they actually are. Number 3, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. And number 4, this can lead to emotional overinvestment and attachment to that person. So back to number 1, creating unrealistic versions of this person in our head that we barely know. So our brains are wired to fill in gaps, especially when we don't have all the details. And in these gaps, we start building idealized versions of certain situations. In this case, a person. Like maybe they'll be the one who finally understands me, or they will be the person that will never let me down. But the truth is, you guys are probably 2 weeks into talking, and at this point, you don't know the person well enough to create these ideas and scenarios in your head. Number 2, we begin to fall in love with the idea of that person that we created in our head rather than who they actually are. Now, while we're daydreaming, this person is perfect most of the time. They have no flaws, no bad habits, and they meet every expectation that we have for them. Like, for example, while you're daydreaming, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the person that's going to send me good morning texts every morning. Anytime they show up and see me, they're going to bring me flowers. They're going to be the person that I marry, the person I have kids with, blah, 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 this, that, and the next. But let's come back to reality. They're bound to have bad habits / behaviors that don't align with the fantasy version of them that we've created in our head. Number 3, when we are creating the version of this perfect person / perfect relationship that could be in our head, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment, because inevitably this person will show sides of themselves that don't match the image that you've created. Now, I know that it sounds like I'm repeating the same things over and over again, but by saying, it doesn't match the person that you've created in your head, but it's true. They might say something or do something that completely contradicts what the version that you've created of them would have done in certain situations or just in general. Like if you imagined him sending you good morning and good night texts every night and every morning because he did it once and he doesn't do it, your brain's gonna be like, okay, what the fuck? Why is he acting like this? Like, does he not like me anymore? This, that, and the next. In this case, let's say, no, he does still like you, but because you've created that in your head, now you're causing yourself emotional distress because you're overthinking. I hope that makes sense. And because you've invested emotionally in a version of them that doesn't exist, it feels like a much bigger letdown than it should. Like, for example, if he came to pick you up for a date and he didn't bring you flowers like you had imagined in your head, you may start thinking things like, wow, I thought that they were different, or I didn't expect this from them. No, you didn't, because you didn't give them time to show you who they actually are. And number 4, daydreaming too much in the talking stage can lead to emotional attachment or overinvestment. When you spend so much time in your head imagining your future and situations with that person, you will start to attach emotions to those things that you've fantasized about. Because it's easy to confuse the excitement of things that you come up with in your head with whether or not there's an actual emotional connection. Like after a first date, you're so excited in your head and you're like, oh my goodness, him and I have this in common, that in common, this, blah, 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 blah. And then your brain starts spiraling and you're like, oh my God, we're going to get married. We're going to have kids, blah, 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 this, that, and the next. And I bet they're going to do this on our next date. I bet that they're going to be like this while we're in a relationship. And while you're building up all these things in your head, you forget that you guys just went on one date and there is not that strong of an emotional connection yet. So now if things don't work out between you two, the fallout can feel much worse than it actually is because you've already fallen in love with this imaginary life and future that you built with this person in your head. Those are the 4 reasons why I think that excessive daydreaming during the talking stage can be super emotionally damaging. But now let's talk about how to avoid all the things that we just mentioned. 1, it's important to stay grounded in reality, especially during the talking stage. Take things slow and focus on getting to know that person for who they actually are, not who you want them to be. Let the relationship develop naturally and resist the urge to get too far ahead of yourself. Like, for example, after your second date, if you catch yourself thinking about you guys being in a relationship, stop the thought, cut it off. Remind yourself that it was only a second date and you still don't know who this person actually is. Now, don't get me wrong, daydreaming can be fun, but when it starts to cloud your judgment and set unrealistic expectations, it can do way more harm than good. And the final thing is to remember, the person that you're talking to is just that. They're a person. They're not some fantasy character that you've created in your head. And most of the times, they will never be able to live up to those high unrealistic expectations that you set for them in your head. Keep your heart open, but your expectations realistic. That way, when they show you who they truly are, you can decide whether or not they're a right fit for you without the disappointment of a shattered daydream. Because listen, I have been in the situation where I went on a date with a guy and I was like, oh my God, they are perfect. They do everything that my ex didn't do. I get along with them so well. We have so much in common. And I started fantasizing about what a relationship would have been like with them after like the second date, all because they did one thing that I really, really liked. And in me doing that, I allowed myself to get manipulated and strung along for months because I had built up an unrealistic version of this person in my head and an unrealistic future and life with this person, which made it way harder whenever this person ended things with me because I had over emotionally invested in what I thought we had. So yeah, be careful. Remember to keep yourself grounded and keep realistic expectations. Okay, everybody, that is the end of today's video. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this, make sure to comment and let me know. Also, if you want to see me do any different videos, let me know down below as well. And if you guys are feeling like it, maybe subscribe. I don't know. But I will see you guys in the next Vlogmas.
So come on, give me love. I'ma show you how to move with my body.